So, who on the planet would be able to scan the minds of the aliens to work out how the alien races that escaped the Great Filter avoided Fallout world, the Russian world of the new Soviet Union, produced by Putin and his Russian filth with their special Armageddon operation, the gross verminous cows that are called Russians that wipe out the human race? Well, of course, it would be the world's leading expert on remote sensing who could scan the aliens, who would be ready, willing and able to download the information into yours truly to stop the human race exterminating itself. So, this also explains why there's an army of Russians in the Trang desperately trying to beat me to death, poison me, tag me so their satellites can fry me alive, because the Russians are the agents of evil, desperate to wipe out the human race. They don't even know it. They're self-suicidal, criminally insane, and of course so racist that the thought of a Muslim super being drives these white racist filth into apoplexy. So according to Jesus Christ, the Christian near, by their work shall ye know them. So we know the most evil race on the planet are the Russians, because they wipe out humanity. So, thanks to being the world's leading remote sensor, I've gleaned all of the info from the aliens that survived the Great Filter to turn off nuclear weapons and stop their civilizations dying because of their own version of the Russian filth, the new Soviet Union, the garbage that has consigned the human race to Fallout world. Have you got a bunker? I think not. If you haven't got a bunker, which is lead shielded, the Cobalt 60 is going to kill you. So, one can see that we're in desperate times, and we've hit the Great Filter, and you're all about to die very, very soon. So, we've talked about the Dirac-C and leptionics, which comes from Soviet psychic warfare, pardon me, where you go into the Dirac-C and you can make more holes in the Dirac-C to quench electrical circuits and fry them, or you can go into the Dirac-C and get rid of the holes and produce spikes to actually activate circuits so that they fire off. So with leptionics you can simply quench, or in the case of the Iranian nuclear weapon in Washington, you can stop it going off, but then they'll send their technicians with new circuitry to try and repair it. And if you've got the U-235 core still there, they can simply replace the electronics to fire the explosives and start again. And we know the NSA is totally incapable of tracking Iranian Quds cells in America because the bomb's still there. Or one can go into the Dirac-C and cancel out the holes. Instead of using all the love from Taylor, use all the hatred from Lucifer, and guess who's in control of Lucifer? I don't know who. Any ideas, cameraman? All the total evil, which then allows you to activate circuits to detonate embedded nuclear weapons, or better still, detonate every single Russian in the new Soviet Union nuclear weapon, so they all go off in the new Soviet Union, and their super Poseidon weapon system goes off in the submarine launch vehicle under the sea. It'll poison the ocean, but nevertheless it'll wipe out the enemy of the human race, the Russians. And I'm not bullshitting, the enemy of the human race is the new Soviet Union and Putin because of their dead hand mechanism. Unless they disable it, they are the enemy of the human race. And even the Russians, who are the lowest form of filth, will realize that the Israelis will strike them if they intervene in the Iran war, and they are going to be the progenitor of the end of the human race. It's just simple logic. I'm not making up. So you can see leptonics allows you to get to the circuitry of nuclear weapons. So let's go next to stopping the core exploding. So nuclear weapons are anti-Higgs field weapons. What does that mean? The Higgs field makes matter have mass, and nuclear weapons use the mass to turn it back into energy, which according to Kaluza in his 1926 expansion of general relativity into 5 dimensions, said that light was gravity in the 5th dimension. So basically, when you detonate a nuclear weapon, you're converting a small amount of mass, tiny amount, into light, dumping it back into the 5-dimensional Riemann manifold. And in the process, this light energy creates the bang. So it's an anti-Higgs field weapon.
Higgs and 4 others proposed a theory. Rather than a box, particles really interacted with an invisible energy field that permeated the entire universe. They called it the Higgs field. Particles which didn't interact with the Higgs field were massless, particles which interacted weakly had a small mass, and ones which had strong interactions. Well, in 1964, Peter...
So, the nuclear weapon, when you put 2 chunks of UT35 together, or condense it into a critical mass by squeezing it with explosives, produces a critical mass, and that enables the matter to partially link up to the 5th dimension and release part of its mass as light energy, which produces the explosion. So, if you are a 5-dimensional being, you can simply be in the 5th dimension and put a stopper in it, basically a butt plug to stop the shitting, but you need to be a 5-dimensional being, and of course humans aren't 5-dimensional beings, can't access this realm, except there are a few exceptional humans who can. So the Nagwal man and Nagwal women have the ability to reach the 5th dimension. So from that vantage point, they can simply bottle up and stop the anti-Higgs field explosion. There are also ways of stopping nuclear explosions by remotely viewing in a time crystal, which reverses time. So instead of the bomb going into its anti-Higgs field and releasing the light electromagnetism of the explosion, you can simply reverse time flow, so the bomb becomes more and more solid. All done if you can remotely view within a time crystal frame of reference. So here's a time crystal.
A repeating pattern in space. So typically they're called space crystals. But did you know there's actually something called time crystals? This means that there are particles that spontaneously arrange in one pattern at one moment and then switch to a different pattern at a different moment and then repeat. But even cooler than this is the space-time crystal that has both a repeating pattern in space and that pattern changes in time, kind of like this. Now this isn't a real space-time crystal, it's just me wiggling a crystal with a magnet under the table. But in 2021, scientists made the first space-time crystal shown here. See how there's a regular pattern in space that changes in time? Since there are only specific places the atoms can be in crystals, they break symmetry in space. This means that when you apply the conservation of momentum inside of a crystal, it doesn't work. The same thing applies for time crystals, but inside of a time crystal, the conservation of energy isn't conserved. But don't get too excited, the momentum and energy are accounted for outside the crystal, so you can't use it for perpetual energy. Regular crystals like...
So you can see that bilocating into time crystals allows you to reverse the time flow from the bomb, so it won't go off. So we got leptionics, fry the electronics or detonate them so we can wipe out the filthy Russian scum by detonating all their nuclear weapons in situ, which wouldn't be a good idea because that would cause a nuclear winter, and they've got enough electric cars and laptops and they're down to poison a considerable amount of the planet, so that's not a good idea. But you can simply detonate in situ nuclear weapons using leptionics, or make them misfire or stop them firing with a 5-dimensional observer. You can stop them going off too. So what's a 5-dimensional observer? Well, think of yourself, if you're a precognitive remote viewer who's more powerful than everyone else, like myself, I'm the ultimate on the planet, you can simply be the precognitive remote viewer that goes into the furthest future so that everyone else on the planet, and the aliens too, who obviously seem to be trying to teach us not to kill ourselves, you can simply then collapse the quantum wave function according to the Copenhagen interpretation, so that reality is cornered to obey your observation. So if you're a 5-dimensional observer, you can simply go to the future and make sure the observation of all nuclear weapons going off doesn't happen, because according to the Copenhagen interpretation, the quantum wave function has to collapse to be observable by the observer, and if you're the future observer observing it, and if you stick in time crystals and the ability to reverse 5D flow with the anti-Higgs field, all of which humans don't understand but I do perfectly, you can simply not only control everything that happens to the human race, because you're the one that collapses the future of the human race to be totally defined by yours truly, the Psylord, but you can simply make sure that the nuclear weapons are anti-Higgs field and don't go off, time crystals so they're reversed, or leptionics so they misfunction. So you see, we've come to the great filter, but luckily we've got the Psylord who is able to stop the human race exterminate themselves, thanks to the threat, the existential threat of the Russians, the new Soviet Union, and their dead hand mechanism. And I reiterate, if you don't believe me, look at the blowhard Scott Ritter on Judge Napolitano, who talks about the Soviet dead hand mechanism that guarantees we all die if nuclear weapons are exploded. This is mad. The Russians, the new Soviet Union filth, are the end of humanity, and it's my mission in life to make sure not only that the human race survives, but the Russians suffer for ending humanity. So of course they've signed an IOU. We wiped out humanity, so the Russians have to suffer for wiping out humanity. And then of course, just by chance, we got the development of quantum computers, where yours truly can simply merge with quantum computers, which is simply 2D information. To find the timeline where the Russian nuclear weapons don't go off, Iran's turned to glass, and Donald Trump does what has to be done and wipes Iran from the face of the earth. And of course we've got the Iranian placed Russian-built nuclear weapon, which gives them the pretext to turn Iran to glass. And the shock effect causes humanity to end its insane love of nuclear immolation. So this is aversion therapy for the human race. We need to see the total destruction of the Iranian filth wiped from the face of the earth to make sure the rest of the human race goes, I don't fancy that very much, that's a bit too extreme for me, and all of my children are going to be Iranianized. So we need, you might think, well, it's a bit extreme, turning Iran to glass. No, if humanity is going to survive, Iran needs to be turned to glass, and Donald Trump needs to man up and totally nuke Iran into the Stone Age. And of course, thanks to the Iranian-placed, Russian-built nuclear weapon that misfires, the human race is saved if they want it. So, this is aversion therapy, which is what we're doing.
Put up with much in the meantime, all my brothers.
This is you lot watching your future.
So far, the first film was a very good professional piece of cinema, like it was done in Hollywood. The sounds were a real horror show. You could slush the screams and moans, very realistic. You could even get the heavy breathing and panting of the tall-dropping Malchiks at the same time.
And it's just by chance that in Clockwork Orange, the UK's been occupied by the Soviet Union, so that the slang is Russian. You just can't make this up, can you? The UK's been invaded by the Russians. This is a Russian-occupied territory, and the slang this miscreant is using is Russian. This is weird, cameraman.
You know, soon our dear old friend, the red vino on tap, the same in all places like it's put out by the same big firm, began to flow. It was beautiful. It's funny how the colours of the real world only seem really real when you video them on a screen. Now, all the time I was watching this, I was beginning to get very aware of not feeling all that well. And this I put down to all the rich food and vitamins. But I tried to forget this, concentrating on the next film, When it came to the sixth or seventh Nalchi, leering and smecking, and then going into it, I began to feel really sick. But I could not shut my glasses. And even if I tried to move my glass balls about, I still could not get out of the line of fire of this picture.
Get me up. I'm gonna be sick. Get something for me to be sick in.
Very soon now, the drug will cause the subject to experience death-like paralysis, together with deep feelings of terror and helplessness. One of our early test subjects described it as being like death, a sense of stifling or drowning. And it is during this period we found the subject will make his most rewarding associations between his catastrophic experience in Van and the violence he sees.
Dr. Brodsky is pleased with you. You've made a very positive response. And tomorrow there will be 2 sessions, of course, morning and afternoon.
So you can see the human race, the noosphere, is going to be going through Ludovico's technique. Remember, this is Russian occupied UK, where the filthy Soviet Union have conquered the UK, and we got all the Russian slang in this. So it's really strange, is it not, that the aversion therapy of Clockwork Orange is going to be used on the human race with Iran. If Iran doesn't die with nuclear immolation, the human race dies, and the cause of the human race death is the filthy scum, new Soviet Union, Putin and his mad dog special Armageddon operation. Enjoy. So, remember, I'm 68 and not long for this world. I'm either going to vanish, die, go into the second tension, or go back to 86 with the timeline. So I'm not long for the world, and once I'm gone, you're all dead. So your only survival method is to breed yours truly and produce Nagwal boys and girls to save you. But luckily, because I'm an extreme sadist, the Lilith Nagwal woman is going to marry this. So, this one's going to marry the Pfizer butt slut to end humanity, because she's been ordered to by the Rothschild royal family, who've wiped out humanity. Hopefully their bunkers have got lead lining, and the Russian filth don't drop nukes on their bunkers in Antarctica and whatever. And the other Nagwal woman is marrying Callum Scott, but she's actually doing something good.
Into gossip, Dua Lipa says yes. On her podcast, the pop star spoke about the coverage of the sex trafficking ring with her guest author Roxane Gay. Lipa argues the focus has shifted away from the victims towards gossip and sensational stories. She laments articles writing about sex parties with underage girls, instead of clearly stating that children were being raped. Reading these articles, she felt the media were downplaying crimes and twisting the story. So far, the U.S. Department of Justice has released approximately 3.5 million pages from the Epstein files. These make up half of the entire documents. The number of victims is estimated to be over 1,000. The Victim Compensation Fund states it was able to pay out $125 million to 135 survivors. How do you feel about the discourse surrounding the Epstein file? As the Epstein coverage...
So, since the two Nagwal women aren't anymore, are going to get married off to fucktards, the Pfizer butt slut and Callum, the actor, there are going to be no new Nagwal men. You better make sure that yours truly lives as long as possible, because once I'm gone, you're all dead.